Hi everybody, Clarke from Thrive Physical Therapy and Wellness in Richmond, Virginia, and this is the podcast Strive to Thrive, your weekly segment designed to help improve your health, increase your success, and ultimately help you thrive in life. So I'm very excited today to be talking to two very talented health and wellness coaches, Jackie Oken and Michele Atkins. I'm excited to learn from them and want to learn a little bit about what they do. So not everybody knows about what health and wellness coaching is, so I was hoping you could maybe just shed some light on that for everybody.
Sure, I'd be happy to start.
Go for it.
Great. There are all different kinds of coaches. I mean, there are life coaches and executive coaches and whatnot, and this health and wellness coach, really, most people don't know what's different about a health and wellness coach. It is now an official industry and profession, which it hasn't been for many years, and there are schools that have incredibly well accredited programs like Duke and Georgetown, where Michele and I went, and we get the opportunity to work with people one-on-one or in groups, and we have people look at where they are in terms of their health and wellness now and where they wish they were, what they wish were different, and we help people navigate that with a very, very specific process. The cool thing about health coaching is that we sit with no judgment, no criticism, and we hold the client as the expert in their own lives, and we help through the processes that we've been trained in to help people navigate a course that allows them to make the changes and get this sense of self-efficacy, which is, I can do it myself, I've got what it takes. And it's the coach's job to help navigate that course.
I also think the interesting piece to health and wellness coaching is that it spreads way, way beyond just fitness or diet or nutrition, stuff like that. So what people don't always know is that health and wellness coaching incorporates the whole being, the whole person. So we can look at pieces, let's imagine this is a big pie of your life. We can look at the pieces as, is your sleep impacting your wellness? Of course we know that it is. Mm-hmm. Good, bad, or indifferent. Your relationships, your surroundings, do you have a lot of joy in your life? Things like that. So it goes well beyond just what are you eating and are you working out? And I think that's the most magical piece to this, like the key of the puzzle being health and wellness.
Yeah, people, Clarke, oftentimes think that health coaches help you eat right and exercise and maybe manage your stress. But like Michele said, it hits so many other areas because your sense of well-being could come from just feeling too disorganized in your home, or it can be from not having a sense of connection to your community, or feeling like you're isolated. Or those are all things that impact well-being, and those are all things that Michele and I are able to work with people on.
Gotcha. So what would be some things that people commonly come and maybe talk about initially in terms of why they want to come see a life coach to start with? Are there health coaches?
Yeah.
How frequently would they? What do they say?
You know, I think the most remarkable thing is most people think they're going to come talk about nutrition or fitness, and then when they see that pie that Michele referred to, and say, "Really? You're right. You know, I used to have a strong sense of purpose to my day, and I'm lacking that. So can we go there?" Mm-hmm. So I can't say there's. I think the most remarkable thing is that people get surprised that it isn't just nutrition and fitness, although that's always an option to discuss. Yeah.
I would say probably the most common red thread that I hear is stress management. Now, stress can come from a matter of different things, right? If you're not sleeping well, you're more stressed out than you might be. If you don't enjoy your work, then you're probably more stressed out than if you're fully in flow there. Same goes with nutrition. If you're eating poorly, you're going to have higher levels of stress. So I think that would be the one common thread, but it's a whole variety of different things that people show up with.
You know, something else that people don't realize, Clarke, is that a health and wellness coach, although they are very knowledgeable in the area of health and wellness, and may have some expertise in any one of the categories, they don't teach. They're not there to teach the client what they need to know. They may ask permission. You know, I know something about this. Can I share that with you? But they may just be helping the client determine what resources are available to them and help them figure out how they're going to incorporate that into their lives. So if a health and wellness coach is doing more talking in the session than the coach, that coach is not coaching. That coach is teaching. So that's a notable difference between health coaching and other types of coaching often.
So that's really good distinction. So what is the process? Like if someone came to you, how do you start to unpack some of this and actually help somebody?
Well, just like with every other coaching, you start with the person's vision for themselves and the values, what's important to them. And that's pretty universal in coaching. You want to know, where do you see yourself, what's amiss, and what's really important to you. And that could be hours of discussion in that alone. Because if you don't establish that, behaviors don't change. And we always, as long as you work with somebody, you're always going back to the values and the visions. So to answer your question, that's where the process starts. Do you want to take the next part?
Well, I think I would add on to that also with, it's really simple. When we really boil it down, it's where are you now and where do you want to be? And what do you need to do to make that happen? What needs to happen for you to get there and get to where you want to be? A whole lot of behavior change typically is the answer to that. But it's chunking it out and making it smaller, more reasonable pieces to say, well, the first step is I can do this. So I guess that would be the next step, is saying, where do we want to be? How are we going to get there? And then what are the steps that we're going to take to do that? And those come truly from the client. It's not us saying, well, I know that this other client I had success with steps A, B, and C. It's saying, what do you think would work for you? And then as the coach, we're there to support them and kind of lock arms and say, I'll go with you, but it's not up to me to say I have the directions.
Sometimes if you're dying to give a suggestion and really not supposed to do that, you ask what the process is. One of the tools that we have is brainstorming. So we can do that when someone really feels stuck and they don't want, I don't know the next step. We can do sort of a brainstorming exercise where nothing is too crazy, too silly to say. So we're both going back and forth, and that opens up creativity and sort of loosens it up, and then we can continue in some direction after that usually.
Yeah. How do you help someone pull out like values and things that when they don't know what's happening or how to work through a particular problem? Like what are other things that you would ask?
There's something called the salutogenic effect, which is what's working for you now, what's working in the past. And sometimes having someone tap into, if they don't know what's important to them, where are their strengths? What's gone well in their lives? And sometimes that helps them identify a thread in their own life and be able to identify what's important. Usually people do know what's important. They don't know how to always grasp it, but most people, it doesn't take much for them to know what's important to them and why.
Yeah. I know you had a really good statement one time in regards to whether something is relevant or not, and a question that you asked people to ask of themselves on whether it's an area to address or not. And I remember that, and I was hoping you would share that because I thought that was.
Do you remember?
Do you remember? Because I don't.
Yeah.
Do you remember
Would you jog
was?
my memory of what I said?
Well, it was something around is it going to make a difference in future? It was a future tense question. Like, can I leave this alone, or should I address it?
Yeah, it's oftentimes really impactful to ask clients, if you don't do anything, what's your life going to look like in 2, 5, 10 years? Or if you do change something, where do you want to be in 2, 5, 10 years? I think that's typically really gets folks their wheels turning. And one of the things you said, and it's one of my favorite questions to ask people, is think back to a time when you felt like you were on top of the hill, queen of the hill, or whatever that means for you. And what was going on in your world at that point? What was going well? What was missing? And I think that gets really people in the mindset of, okay, I know that these are the things that were important at that time to me. So yeah.
Very nice. Yeah, very nice.
Yeah.
So how do you help people, like when there's 3 or 4 things or 5 things that somebody thinks are really important? How do you help people break it down? Like, because obviously you're not going to probably be able to address all of them at once. Like, how do you navigate that?
One of the keys to being a good health and wellness coach is knowing the right questions to ask anybody, and it's the questions you ask aren't just questions. I mean, they're supposed to be really thought-provoking and give people an opportunity to reflect and whatnot, and then you mirror back what you heard. If someone's struggling and not knowing next steps, you just go wherever they are at that moment and let them know what you're seeing and hearing. And usually it sparks a thought in their minds, and they're able to move forward from there. You never tell them the next step or what they should think or a suggestion, but if you ask the right curious questions and you sit there in a true state of support and you're totally present, non-judgmental and not critical, minds open up and people become more creative and take a little risk and are able to think, maybe this is what I believe.
I know one of the things we've talked about in the past is just about understanding the depth of why something is important. Like, could you maybe talk about why that's important?
Yeah, prioritization, right? One of the things that I think people don't always realize is it's not our job to always be gentle. It's our job to always be present. It's our job to always be there and in service of our clients. But sometimes it requires a little push to say, okay, you told me 5 things were important. Is that realistic? Can you actually make all 5 of those things happen? Probably not. And that's totally okay, very much fine. But what is most important? Where do we need to prioritize your energy? Where do we need to put your efforts? Because once you tackle these things, maybe it's 6 months down the road, maybe it's 5 years down the road, then you can pick up those next few things if they're still important at that point. But understanding the why is truly the magic as to why are we going to do this? Because if we don't understand and tackle that why, we lose the energy and the motivation and all the momentum that we've built up along the way, because typically we don't reach goals in the next 5 days. And so 5 days in, we start to lose a little traction. And if we can't hold on to that why, we tend to either not get there or not get there as fast as we could if we really are clear on the why and what's important to us.
It's also important as the health and wellness coach to encourage people to chunk things down into little pieces. A lot of places you'll go and you're told to set a long-term goal and set a short-term goal. Now go. And it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming for the best of the best. So we need to help a client slow it down, break things into smaller, achievable pieces, and then with time, put the pieces together and it becomes the very thing they were trying to accomplish. But if left to people's own devices often, they take on way too much and then say, look, I failed again. Well, it was really because your hand wasn't being held by the right health and wellness coach to help you navigate the process.
Yeah, and one of the things that you mentioned to me one time was about the importance of self-talk, and in reference to, in an answer where they say they maybe failed, how do you help someone work through that? Because I know you expressed that wasn't a healthy state. Like, how do you work through that part?
In a coaching relationship, you usually set sort of guidelines and standards for the working relationship, and it's of my own doing. I bet you Michele does it too. That's one of my rules, if there are any rules, is we don't do any negative self-talk, and I would never do any negative statement to them. As soon as we speak in a negative fashion about ourselves or our behaviors or our past, we put ourselves in the fight or flight mode, basically, whether we know it or not. And no behavior is going to change in a positive direction when we're in that state. So it takes practice, particularly for women. Women beat themselves up, I swear, more than anybody else. So it takes a lot of practice, and they need to have the feeling of unconditional support in the relationship and reminders that there can be a cognitive reappraisal that switches the thought from a negative thought to a positive thought, and you're only one step closer to accomplishing what you want by the very virtue of putting something in the positive about yourself. Yeah, you could use the word failure, or you could say, that was a great learning experience. And we have to work on that. A lot of us have to work on that.
Yeah, it's kind of a shift in a mindset focus. One of the things that you said one time that I really, really like was you said that when you're in a state of self-criticism, there is no progress that's going to be made. And I've heard both of you say a lot about the key is the experience in progress, even if it's in small increments, that it's usually in small increments, and that the key is moving towards something and then focusing on that. So I think that's very nice. Yeah. What's the difference? Because I know when sometimes people go through different life problems, like it's not unusual to go see a counselor, but I know that there's some fundamental differences in terms of philosophy. How would you help someone understand when someone might go see a counselor versus helping with something that's more life-related? How do you navigate that?
One of the things that I say to clients is counseling or seeing a therapist will, and this might not always be true, but this is a very generalized statement that people tend to understand, is when you're looking for therapy or a counselor, it's because we're talking about something that had happened to you and we need to work through that. I think of coaching more as a forward-looking opportunity. Not that counseling and therapy can't be there with you also, but as a coach, I'm always saying, what happened to you has happened to you and that's in the past. What are you going to do about it and how are you going to move forward? So I think it's really this line between the past, what's been done, what's happened, and where we are today, and what's going to change for your future.
What are you going to do with it?
Yeah.
And at the same time, using that past sort of like a classroom. You know, a counselor might evaluate and analyze and that kind of stuff. We use the past only as, did we learn something from that we can now put in the present and move forward.
Right.
So as Michele said, it's a forward moving.
So do you necessarily need to have a problem to go see a life coach? Like per se is like a pathology. I know that's one of the ways I've heard it explained with counseling once upon a time, is that it's not necessarily around a pathology or an issue. It's just, it could be just you want to improve something. It could be whatever it would be.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I think people can come to coaches for a whole variety of different things. But I love it the most when clients come and say, I just want to be a little bit different. I want to be a little bit better. I want something to be changed in my life. So that's where I really connect with folks.
So what got you both into health and wellness coaching? How'd you go down this road?
Well, I don't think Michele was even born when I was getting into health and wellness, so we have two very different paths. But I got my graduate degree in exercise physiology when I was Michele's age, and loved working in the. I was working in hospital systems and putting together wellness programs and medical testing centers and whatnot. I had a ball. Did a lot of program development and teaching, a lot of lectures and stuff. Fortune 500 companies. I mean, it was amazing. But I knew for decades that I was teaching, and that people were excited about what I taught, but I didn't think behaviors were really changing. Even in this magnificent heart disease program that we developed, a Dean Ornish type medically supervised program, something was missing. And then I learned maybe 10 years ago about the Duke Integrative Medicine health coaching curriculum. Looked into it for a couple of years and said, that's what's missing, that's what I want to do. So I went there. Since then I've sat for the national boards and I've been doing health and wellness coaching ever since.
Explain that distinction, because there's a very strong distinction between a health and wellness coach that's nationally board versus not. So can you maybe just comment on that real quick?
Sure. The national board certification has been going on for just 2 years now. But a person can only sit for the national boards if, one, they come from an accredited program, such as Georgetown, where Michele went, or Duke Integrated Medicine, where I went. And there's a number of other good schools, but they can't take a fly-by-night course and then sit for the boards. And then, because they've gone through a quality program, there's going to be a knowledge base higher than just any old person, sort of. Sure. And then they've studied and passed this exam, which indicates a certain level of proficiency. So it is, if you have the option to choose someone that comes from a really good school and or is board certified, that's the way to go. Anyone can call themselves a trainer, anyone can call themselves a health coach. You want to look for somebody who comes from a good program and or is board certified.
Credentials are key, right? You wouldn't go to a doctor who took an online course last night. Yeah. And so it's a little bit different, but very much the same in the way that credentialing works for coaching also.
So what got you into it?
Honestly, I think coaching found me. When I was in college, I thought I was going to go down the physical therapy route. I then found myself in the business world. That's when I discovered leadership coaching. And I was like, oh, this is really fueling my soul. But I knew there was something missing, similar to what Jackie was saying. And that's how I discovered health and wellness coaching. And I felt like for me, that put a bow on my love for the business side of things, because I can use my coaching skills in business. I also can start my own business through this coaching stuff. But it also brought back to life for me the taking care of the whole person that was really missing, and that I had fallen in love with back when I was in college. So for me, it was really just, coming back together, bringing it all full circle.
Well, and this is a question for both of you. What do you guys find really rewarding about it? What's the part you really enjoy about it?
I love the opportunity to sit in this kind of a professional relationship with a person where by definition, you're sitting with no judgment, no expectation, no criticism. It's all about them, the whole person, the process. I like to bring my expertise to the relationship, but it's an honor to sit with somebody and have it be all about them, with knowing that I have the tools to help them get to where they want to go. So that's what
I think it's a gift.
Yeah.
It's a gift in a way that you can care for other people while allowing them to be fully in charge of where the relationship goes and where their progress goes. The relationship is always incredibly meaningful, but it's not about me and the client, it's about the client. And so it's just a really special dynamic.
Mm-hmm. Really special.
It's nice to see them be able to go from a certain situation or a certain state to something different. Could you maybe give me an example of where you've seen people like be very successful with something or overcome something with you guys as help? Do you have any just examples? Obviously, you work together with them, and the person has to do the work, and it's a unique process to health and wellness coaching. But can you give some examples of where someone went from something to something?
I can think of one person I worked with for a period of time, both in a teaching capacity and then a coaching capacity, and she had kidney disease, and she was a lovely, little bit older woman who had a fantastic social life, and she just loved her cocktails and her wine, and it was really, really hard to get from where she was, which was really, really damaging her kidneys, not drinking more than anybody else, but her body couldn't take it, to over the years really, really sort of creating a new persona around that didn't work for me. You know, I couldn't be with my grandchildren in the morning after a glass of wine, and I was out of commission for a day, and puffy on the eyes, and weight went on, but it took her a while to let that persona go and embrace this new version of herself where she felt like $1,000,000. There's no question to this day, I probably haven't been in touch with her for a year now. I have no question that this new person hasn't stayed, and she went through the beginning part, kicking and screaming, which is fine. She had to do that, and dabbling and trying different things, and it was okay. But she stuck with it, and she stuck in the coaching relationship, and I think she's really changed who she is in terms of her health, and I don't believe she's ever going back because it's so strong. Yeah. How about you?
Very nice.
The one that I would love to share is I have a dear client who, we've grown this relationship for a couple of years now, and it just gets more and more meaningful as time goes on. And she first came to me and said, I want to be a mom. And I don't feel like I'm my healthiest self at this moment, and so transitioning to that point for my body to change and to grow another human, I just don't feel like I'm there. I don't feel like I should do this, but it's something I want to do. So we looked at all the aspects of, is your sleep, how's that? How are you feeding yourself? Are you nourishing your body? The whole 9 yards, and she now has a wonderful, beautiful baby girl.
No, she went for it.
She went for it, and what I think was the most profound thing that came out of that is she's now saying, I'm going to be the example to teach my daughter how to live this wonderfully healthy life so that she never has to say, I want to have children, but not yet because I have to get myself in check first. So here we are. Yeah.
That's great.
That's very nice. That's very nice.
5 kids later.
She's got one child right now.
Yeah. Well, Jackie and Michele, thank you for coming. It was nice to be able to learn from you. Both very talented. They're health and wellness coaches in our Thrive Complete Wellness Program in our Transformation Academy, and they work with us at Thrive, and also have their own business as well. And so if you're looking for their services and would like to learn more about health and wellness coaching, they're available, and we'll put some information out with the link to where you could find these guys. Yeah. So thank you.
Thank you, Clarke.
Thank you.